So, and Terrence is where tonight?
I'm not sure. You
Special.
know, Kim?
Out of
He's
town?
attending a volunteer training session for Portland school districts.
Thank
Oh,
you.
cool. That's right. Yeah, it's good. All right, where did that go?
I've started streaming and I'm gonna start recording.
Okay,
Ready?
Okay, so it is 6 p.m. and the SAB meeting is officially called to order. So that's the ringing of the bell, right? Did everyone on the board get a chance to review the minutes from last month's meeting?
yes.
Great. Does anyone have any edits for the notes? Does everyone approve the minutes from last month? Okay, so minutes from March 17th, 2022 have been approved. And I am Kim Bria, the co-chair of the SAB. If everyone could go around and just do a brief introduction. Popcorn style.
Victoria Meyer, West Linn resident, 33 years now,
And,
and a member of the board.
thank you.
Sorry.
So Greg Smith, SAB member, resident of West Linn for 28 years. Not as long as Victoria, but getting close.
It's the same ballpark.
Right.
Mike Carlson, board member, and I've been living in West Linn for 6 years now.
Making the most of it, Mike.
Jerry Gabrielatos, West Linn resident for 2 years, and I can tell you with certainty that Darren lives in his office.
No.
So he was here till 11:30 last night.
Really?
Yeah, true story.
So were you there at 11:32?
No, I'm just taking credit for Darren doing all the work.
All right, thanks. Yeah, Darren Wise, planning manager for the city.
I'm Jason Hudson with West Linn Garbage and Recycling and Waste Connections.
Good.
Thank you. And Debbie, you're on just in time to introduce yourself.
He's not on yet.
Okay. Are you there, Debbie? Well, Debbie is a member of the SAB. There you are. You can just introduce yourself real quick, Debbie. We just started. We'll come back to you for check-ins. So Debbie is a member of the SAB advisory board. So is there anyone on the call for public comment at this time? You see anybody, Jerry? Okay. So let's go ahead and start with check-ins. And Debbie, if you want, we can start with you. Any check-ins since last month?
Don't have a whole lot to say other than redefine my relationship with my yard weeds, specifically dandelions. So instead of looking at them as a noxious weed, I've decided to welcome them onto my salads and stir fries.
If you can't beat them, eat them.
That's right.
Great.
Did you just say Greg?
Yeah, go ahead, Greg.
Okay. I was able to eat sorrel, spinach, and chard and asparagus that I just picked an hour before dinner tonight. So sounds like spring is coming. And I also learned that community resilience is this year's theme for Earth Day, which is interesting. I'm going to be giving a talk up at UCC Church in Beaver Creek on Saturday for Earth Day. So they mentioned it there. So just trying to get the word out about neighborhood resilience teams. So it'll be fun.
Jump in. Just happy to see the weather turning. I'm able to start running grocery runs on my bike now, so I'm happy about that. And wanted to express my appreciation to Greg for his presentation at the most recent Sustainability Education Series event.
Thanks.
I thought it was a great event, and Greg did a wonderful job.
Appreciate it.
Okay, and I attended last Friday, the National Environment Business Council had a forum, an energy forum, and they were talking about the Infrastructure and Jobs Act. And it was exciting, it was overwhelming, and there's a ton of money coming for infrastructure, and it's going to be very difficult across the country for people to spend it all. They don't have enough planners and engineers, designers to get it ready, or enough contractors to build it. So some of the takeaways that I wanted to share with this group, and we had talked about the electric school bus before. It was brought up in one of our meetings. This is just one example. It's not just a bus, it's now part of that future of managed energy. So when PGE was here, they were mentioning at the end of the meeting with us that a school bus can act as a battery to help manage peak loads after hours and charge back into the system. From a resiliency standpoint, it also can be a portable battery. And at this event, they also talked about it. So there's a bunch of money for school buses in particular, but this is where the things are going, is it's not just an electric vehicle, it's also helping manage loads for renewable energy. So I'm really excited about the work that we've been doing as a board so that the city is aligned for this very thing, that we're front and center for our commitment to sustainability, and that should put us in a good position to receive funding for that infrastructure. And then Jerry, Darren, any updates?
I'll wait
Ate some
until the
asparagus?
staff one.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I'll wait until the staff one.
Okay. And Mary's here. Hi, Mary. Welcome. I know it's fun getting in. You want to introduce yourself quick? And we were just finishing up updates. So anything if you want to share for Earth Day or sustainability or.
Well, I am Councillor Mary Baumgartner, and I can't think of anything I have to share right off the top of my head. I'm sorry. I'm just lucky I made it. That's all.
Okay, well, you're just in time for Jason to talk about the things Jason's going to talk about.
Excellent.
Hi, Jason Hudson with West Linn Refuse and Recycling. Jerry had just mentioned your group. I met him a couple months ago, and he mentioned that your group meets regularly, and he suggested that I join one of your calls to introduce myself and just answer any questions that you guys might have. So I really don't have anything prepared. I will let you know, based on the electric bus, we've been, I also oversee our operations in Vancouver, Washington, and we're supposed to have an electric truck, fully electric truck delivered to us last March. It keeps continuing to get delayed, but we're excited. Hopefully we'll be getting that this year. Expect we'll get that this year. So it's one of the first ones in our fleet, the body, and it's fully electric, body and chassis. So we're excited to give that a try and see how it works. So once I have some more details on that, I can fill you guys in. But I know there was some interest in food waste, adding food waste to your compost. Yeah. And I guess the short answer is it can easily be done, right? The carts are in place. I think the big change is once you add food to your compost or to your yard waste, it makes it much more complex. once you add food in there, the nitrogen and the carbon levels get thrown off. It takes a lot more to manage that, a lot more to manage the odors. And because of that, typically, the cost of our disposal goes up to those places that will accept food waste. I would just back of the napkin math. I would ballpark it. If we wanted to add food, it would probably increase the rates by roughly $2.50 a month. And again, that's something we'd be happy to look in or propose. But I think it would probably make the most sense if something that the council probably wants to weigh in on, and if it's something that the council wants to proceed or investigate further, we're certainly open to doing more of a proposal, a pro forma on it.
I do have a question about costs, because from what I understand, that 250 is across the board. So whether you're doing it or not doing it, it's on every can. I've been reading about waste rates going up all over. And do you have any information on that that's up to date? Because, as landfills fill up, it's not like there's a whole bunch of epic swimming pools to throw garbage into. So do you have any information on any correlation with waste rates? Because putting food in the compost would definitely keep it out of a landfill.
Yeah. No, I don't have. One thing that we, whether, I don't know if it's a good problem to have or a bad problem to have, but there's not a shortage of landfill space in our region. There's 3 regional landfills, in the Columbia River Gorge. So that actually isn't a problem for us. The one thing about the food waste, the majority, once you add it, the majority of the weight is in the yard debris and that stuff. So you're going to be adding that cost to all of the tons, right? Once you add a little bit of food into it. I do know Metro. It sounds like Metro passed their rates. I think their plan is to increase the Metro transfer station rates at about 7% a year for the next 5 years, 7.1 or 7.2%, which are going to be significant increases. I mean, this year kind of makes sense, right? Because that's about where inflation is. It's what fuel and labor, but those years, 2 through 5 that they're planning on doing it, I don't know. They might, hopefully they relook at it or, take another look at it and see what actual inflation is. There was also, Jerry had forwarded me some questions. I think there was one of you might have had a question on optional rates for MSW. There is a once a month rate, and there's also a, I think it's a 21 gallon, so a really small can rate. The once a month rate is about half of what your regular 35 gallon can is, your weekly rate.
I just had a question, additional question about the rate. So if people are composting their food waste, then they would have less salt, the other solid waste going to the landfill. So conceivably, is it possible to have maybe the solid waste would be like every 2-week pickup with maybe a decrease in rate because they're going to have less waste going to the landfill, so they won't necessarily need weekly pickup if that's what they're doing right now. And I don't know if there's any way that we can structure the rates so that people can see benefits from an additional financial benefit to this composting.
Yeah, typically there's I don't have Westland's right in front of me, but there's usually like a 95 gallon rate, a 65, a 35, a 21. And then also weekly services, every other week services, or I think you guys have an actual monthly service. So I think when you offer those types, yeah, people, if they were, a 65 gallon customer and they start, recycling and maybe are able to reduce because of composting, they could go from a 65 to a 35 or a weekly to a every other week, or maybe every other week to once a month. So yeah, you could definitely structure. I don't know that I would do a full-blown plan like Portland. When Portland rolled it out, they went composting weekly, garbage every other week. that was the most frequent you could get garbage in the city of Portland. And there was a lot of upset customers over that, especially, maybe customers that with small children, babies that, had to get rid of diapers and didn't want them to sit around 2 weeks in the summer. But again, that's the decision in Portland made. We did see a lot more contamination and recycling and compost when they did that. I know the numbers don't necessarily reflect it, but it's from what the MRFs in Portland, what they saw is an increase in contamination.
So what kind of support do you guys provide for education for the public so there is less contamination issues? Because that's going to be a huge piece of this all for implementation in terms of education.
Yeah,
and not having those contamination problems. And I don't know if you guys are involved in any support services in that area.
We're actually involved in a lot of levels. We're actually involved in a statewide level right now, trying, Oregon passed a new bill called 582 that's working on getting producers more involved in helping fund recycling and helping to create markets. Part of that is a group that's working on truth in labeling. If you look at the confusion that people have regarding recycling, you look up and they have the chasing arrows in there. A lot of us, and we were grown up, right? Or a lot of us grew up thinking landfills are a bad, evil thing and recycling is going to save the planet. And so we look at these items and we think, well, if I put it in this cart, it's bad. If I put it in this cart, it's good. And the labels on the, so many of our products don't help, right? They throw those chasing arrows on all kinds of stuff. So long story short, we are working on a statewide level to try to reduce, not allow producers to mislabel products to, so people make purchasing decisions. They look at that and say, oh, I feel good about buying this one because I know I can recycle it, when in reality they can't. And then on a local level, somebody asked about stickers on the carts. That's something, when we buy carts, you can actually buy like an in-mold label. It's like a sticker that's molded into the lid that, we could show, yes, these items go, these items don't. I can definitely, as I understand it, your carts currently don't have in-mold labels. So we could look at adding those on future cart purchases. And then upon request, or maybe when carts come in, we could throw a sticker on them as well. And then we do monthly, we could do annual newsletters and stuff with recycling instructions.
The stickers would be huge because, when I walk the dog, sometimes I just cringe when I go past the recycling carts that are full of plastic film and things that aren't recyclable, fluorescent tubes. And I know that whole thing is turned into waste. So I think if there's a way, not just on new carts, but if there's here's your sticker. And for me, it'd be handy because sometimes the kids go by and they throw their Dutch Brothers milkshake into my recycling bin and I have to go diving for it. It's like, at least if you're going to put it in the garbage can and not the recycling bin.
It happens in my own house. Yes.
Yeah.
I think the presence of all those materials in the recycling bin that are not truly recyclable is probably reflective of a desire for people to be able to recycle these things. I'm curious if your organization is looking for ways to expand the range of materials that are acceptable for recycling, and whether or not the 582 bill has any potential additional funding that might be available for recyclers that might make those materials more economically viable for recycling.
Yeah, I think one of the main things they want to do with 582 is actually catch up the rest of Oregon with like the metro area. You look at the Hermistons and, Pendletons of the world, they want to come up with a statewide list that's uniform. So whether you live in Hermiston or West Linn, you can recycle the same items. So they'll probably help fund getting those materials from Eastern Oregon to Portland markets. So that's one thing it's going to do. I don't know that it's going to create markets, but it's going to, there's there's pieces of the bill that will, one, I think if producers aren't allowed to mark items that aren't recyclable as recyclable, they'll probably be more in tune to try to, actually make their packaging to where it is recyclable in our system. And there's, as markets change or as markets develop, then there'll be pathways to get materials added onto that list or taken off of that list as markets change.
I know that there are some locally organized like neighborhood recycling drives that are for collecting materials that are not acceptable through the curbside service. Is there anything happening internally with the organization to, say, for example, begin collecting clear #1 plastic, like clamshells, as an example?
There's been a lot of discussion in a lot of the markets right now. Some of you guys may have heard of the Ridwell. Yeah, a company that's coming with kind of a premium or a service to, door to door. So there are some, I think the big thing is just there hasn't been a steady market for clamshells. But I think if there is, that would be one of those items that's going to be added to the statewide list, and it will be included. I think some of our concerns is just, once you put it in, it's in, and you're not going to get it back out. And so we want to make sure before we add something that there is going to be a stable long-term market for it.
Greg, you had a question?
Oh, I had a question going back to food waste. Are there any communities that separate food waste from yard waste?
Not that I'm aware of. I think that, that's one of the things that makes it easy is because everybody already has, the carts are out there, the trucks are out there collecting it. So rather than, running a separate truck and buying separate carts, all that stuff, you can include it. But again, your disposal cost is going to go up on it. I think right now we take it to Canby, a local company in Canby Landscape. And I think it's, equates, we pay by the yard, but it equates to around $34 a ton. And I think if we include food with it, it would end up going to a Metro facility, and I think they're in the low to mid 70s a ton, so it would more than double.
Is there an opportunity for public service announcements with education with this? So should we choose to do this, is there an opportunity to really have a bigger conversation about what's going in the garbage can? Because, like you said, with the labeling, truth in labeling, somebody on our sustainability, there's a sustainability page for West Linn on Facebook, and somebody's like, what's up with this label? And it was like, now with more methane. It was plastic that degraded quicker, and it said this will make fuel because landfills can convert it to fuel. And I'm not aware of too many landfills that have a clean fuels program. I mean, there's like some can capture a little bit, but to get it clean enough to where it's an actual fuel, that's a pretty broad statement. It's a very low percentage. So, and doesn't things like yard waste and food waste contribute to methane in landfills?
They do. Yeah. Our landfill in Boardman, outside of Boardman, we do collect the gas and we produce electricity with it and sell it into the grid.
But you do produce electricity. Is there any flaring in addition to that?
Not at that one. I think everything is vacuumed. We have it sucks all of the gas out into these big cat engines, and they run and produce electricity. Big generators.
I think it would gather more traction for people because everyone has a different motivation.
Yeah.
Some people want to do it to feel good. Some people want to do it, okay, I've saved some waste. But in the bigger picture, it's great to recapture that. But do we need to be adding more methane producing organics to landfills?
Right. And that's one of the things I'm actually excited about 582. I think in my opinion, I think producers have been misleading people for a long time with their labeling. And so I haven't seen it get this much traction and attention right as it is now. And so I think that's definitely going to help. And again, that's in terms of an education campaign, that's part of it, is that producers will have to, help educate consumers on what actually is recycling in our state and what isn't. So I'm excited for see that. That's one of the biggest things. So it's like Mike said, I think there's a variety of reasons why people do what they do, and I think most people and their intentions are good. I think a lot of people have a term wishful recycling, right? And I think they put it in there hoping it's going to get recycling. I don't know how many garbage or garden hoses we pull out of our, recycling every year.
Jason, do you have any suggestions for how we might proceed if we're really interested in incorporating food waste into what goes into the yard waste buckets in West Linn?
Maybe Jerry has I think that's we're not going to do that unilaterally. I think that's a decision that the council would make. And so maybe if it's something your group feels strongly about, maybe maybe it's something the council would want to take up in a work session, discuss it. We could come with maybe at least just see what the level of interest is. If there's interest there based on, knowing that there would be an increase, then we could go to the next step and actually, put some hard numbers down and come and talk to council at a work session and just see if it's something, they're interested in or something that they're not.
Jason, I'm happy to follow up with you about that. It's my understanding, and this is a question for the group, because I think this is something Alex Min brought it up during a conversation I had with him. This was kicked around in 2016. Is that accurate? Does anyone know? Okay.
Yeah.
Debbie, you had a question?
Oh, I was just going to ask Jerry, what does he anticipate? What are some of the barriers to implementation of the curbside pickup that he sees from his side? And also, if Jason wants to weigh in on that also.
To me, I think the barrier is the cost. I think if that's something that you guys feel that the council felt that the residents would see the value in, I think the implementation is pretty easy. We could, we would probably put together some education packets, probably would put together here's your packet. It comes with a sticker for your cart. And then other than that, it's pretty much directing the truck. We have to drive our truck a little further and dump it at a different place. But in terms of our side, it's pretty easy to implement.
Question on success. I have once a month pickup. I've had it forever since I've been in my home, and I have every week yard debris, which is awesome. So I don't have to take truckloads of yard debris. And weekly recycling pickup if I wanted it. And I don't put that stuff out very often. If this were to be successful and let's say there was a significant increase in people going to once a month, would that be a problem? I mean, if there was a big scalable success of, hey, we can recycle these things and we can live with once a month garbage pickup, would there be a percentage where that would be problematic?
I think yes. Well, at some point, right, we have to have our fixed costs, covered. But from what I've seen, I don't think it would happen. I mean, I don't think that the actual food waste represents by volume that much, where people are going to be able to go from weekly to to once a month.
So Victoria, I have a question about clamshells. We were a while back in the conversation talking about finding a way to have companies be honest with their labeling if something is a recyclable or not. And of course, then that has to be enforced or not. My question is about some clamshells are either 1s or 5s or 6s, and there are different ways to recycle each one. You can take the 6s out to Tualatin, and you can do the 1s through Ridwell, and the 5s you have to throw out. And it gets really, I just wonder if there's any way to encourage businesses to use just one of those.
Yeah. And I think, again, I think what 582 will help, right? If they say, hey, only 1s and 2s are going to be make the statewide list. And if you make a package that's not a 1 or a 2, you can't claim that it's going to be recycling anymore or recyclable anymore. I think that's going to go a long ways, because I think, producers are if it costs a little more or whatever, they're probably going to, everybody wants to be green. Everybody has sustainability goals now. So I think, once there's they get penalized, or at least perceived as not being as green as maybe a competitor, I think that's going to help with that confusion for sure, and hopefully limit the products.
So, sorry, Jason, citizens would have the option of participating in curbside composting, or is that going to be, if we make a decision, that's going to be mandated for everybody in this city? How's that going to work?
So right now the garbage includes the recycling and the yard debris. So it would, if you make the decision, it would, all the stuff gets dumped into the same truck and everything goes the same place. So that rate for the yard debris portion would go up unilaterally.
So it's kind of a mandated thing. So everyone's going to see that increase. It's not like some people will decide to opt out of curbside composting because they're concerned about the extra costs. So that's not an option for them.
Correct. Yeah, because I'm looking at the rate sheet. It says recycling and yard debris included in the rates. So
I was just wondering, because I know Lake Oswego, when they started their program, it was optional for their citizens as to whether they wanted to participate. And I know that they separated out, I believe, the yard debris and the food waste products, because I think that the end product was different, because the composting process, such that there was energy production with one, like with the commercial composting. Do you know anything about that? I think Alex had talked to me about that. He goes, that's why you have to separate it, because the process is going to be different, because the end product is going to be different, whether it be the end product being compost, for the soil amendment versus an energy source, a renewable energy source.
I'm not familiar with what Lake Oswego is doing. I think, though, from an economic standpoint, I think just adding it in with your yard waste and collecting it with the same truck, the same cart, I think it's probably the most economical way to go, and spreading that cost out amongst the larger customer base. Otherwise, you're talking about getting an additional truck, additional containers,
right,
across a much smaller subscription base.
Did we run out of questions for Jason?
So Jerry, what do you think?
I can talk to Jason about developing costs. I don't know how long that would take, but Jason and I can follow up on that, and I can come back to SAB. I just don't know how much time it would take you, Jason, to put together something. I don't want to put you on the spot, but
no, I think we could. We could probably do it in a month or two.
Okay.
Yeah.
Victoria?
I wonder if you could include when you put something together, the problem of contamination in the recycling, because I think that's an important factor in choosing whether or not to go ahead with this. If having food waste somehow increases people contaminating their recycling even worse than they already do. I don't know. Did I hear that wrong?
No, I think I think the compost is simpler. We wouldn't accept compostable silverware and things like that in it. It would just be food. And so I think that compost is usually pretty good. I think it's on the recycling side is where we see more of the confusion and more of the contamination with your plastics. I think you were muted, Victoria. I didn't hear what you said.
Just thanking you. That's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate your time. It was nice to get to know you guys, and happy to come on anytime you guys have questions or if you're interested in anything else.
Thank you,
And Jerry,
Jason.
sounds like we'll
Thank
talk.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a
All
lot.
right. Bye.
Okay.
Okay, so Jerry, if everyone heard the same thing, the two follow-up things I heard was a price to get from him, and also if there's an opportunity for stickers on existing cans, not just the new ones. Because that might help reduce the contamination currently. Okay, so Old Time Fair discussion. Because there's a fair again, and from what I understand, there's no ride, so there might be a bouncy house, but there will be a fair this year. There will be a parade, and the last time before COVID, we had at the Old Time Fair, we did have a booth, a sustainability advisory board booth, and Mary, as a member, did an outstanding job of getting all the cool things in it. And things for kids to do. So do we want to, as a board, be at the fair this year? And dressing up as a bee is optional.
I'm interested. What is the date of the Old Time Fair?
Oh, it's someplace super obvious. July,
Generally the third weekend.
I think
Yeah,
so.
that'd be the 16th.
Yeah, it looks like 15, 16, 17.
Yeah. Huh. Okay.
We also had an electric bike vendor there, which was pretty successful. The former mayor's wife tried a bike and left with a bike that she bought later. But that seemed to help draw people there. There was that active. Mary, maybe you can talk a little bit about what worked at our booth last time.
People were really interested and engaged in that survey. Do you remember that, Kim? It was like a transportation options survey that we were trying to determine. I don't know what happened to all of that data, but people really wanted to engage. And what else did we have? We had a lot of stuff to engage people. We had a lot of materials to hand out. That I got a bunch of things from the Clackamas County Soil and Water Conservation District. Is that right? Is that what it was called?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of educational materials. And somebody brought a bunch of stuff from Backyard Habitat, or my brain's not working, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's backyard habitat.
And the bikes were awesome. That was amazing. But people might have other ideas. I'd love to hear anybody else's ideas too.
What if the booth were decorated with pots of native plants all around? As a way for people to see what they look like.
Like that.
Since there aren't going to be rides, it might be nice to have interactive, like games like cornhole or something that, and somehow adapt it to being sustainability themed. Or another game that kids could interact with. I think it's awesome to have engaging materials that kids can actually participate in and not just walk up to a booth and stand there and get told something.
Was there talk of having PGE partner with us on some content that might be part of the booth
There is now.
pertaining to pertaining to people putting solar on their homes, or some possible electric tool swap, yard equipment, I think they mentioned.
It might be nice, so it's not just us staffing it, to have a representative there from PGE for that kind of thing, to have a representative from the OSU Master Gardeners Extension, and to have someone from Backyard Habitat,
Mhm.
and then whoever's got cornhole at home.
I want electric school bus parked there.
Okay. Let me make a phone call.
An electric garbage truck too.
We could have Electric Avenue.
Yeah.
You're thinking of the native plants. I wonder whether anybody who works at Bosque Dell might be interested. Like if we had PGE come in, have somebody from Bosque Dell come in to talk about native plants and their use in gardening, since they're so knowledgeable about it.
Lori, I can ask Lori. She can't stop talking.
No, it's true. She would be great, and she's really entertaining. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm so enthusiastic. So that's a possibility that she could come in one of those days.
Also, the high school kids, last time I checked, which has been a couple of years, but we're always needing service hours, like for honor society and what have you. And there's a permaculture class, again, last time I checked, that if kids that are in the permaculture class need hours or would like to volunteer, they could maybe come for an hour or two or some like afternoon one of the days and talk about, teach kids. I think sometimes it's nicer to have younger people to engage with instead of a bunch of old fogies like us.
It's in the summer.
Yes.
So it's they'd have to organize for those hours in the spring.
Oh, they do that all the time.
Oh, okay, good. I don't know about that.
Yeah, they do.
So is it Jeff Bingham who runs that class?
I mean, the last time, yes.
Yeah.
Last time I checked.
Could you reach out? Could you reach out to them, Mary?
I can.
That'd be great. Because that way we could get them on deck. I mean, we've had students that have been helping out at the farmer's market, and it seems to work out really well. And they do great at the kids, with the pop club, with the food. They do really
Exactly.
good with the little kids. You're totally spot on.
Exactly.
Anything else sound engaging of why you want to come to the sustainability booth when there's no rides?
Does anybody know whether Bolton Primary still has an active garden in its schoolyard?
Mostly flowers right now.
Uh-huh.
What about Crest? How active is Crest in the school in gardening? Because I had volunteered to work out there right before COVID, and then when COVID started, so I've never been there. I have my pruners all ready to go, but I haven't been to their site.
They had been really active in the past, but I haven't been out there since Bob Carlson retired 3 or 4 years ago. So I'm not sure.
I don't know either. I haven't connected with them in a couple of years, but that's a good idea.
And then what do we need to do to get a booth? Because Mary, you did a lot, you did a heavy lift helping set all that up. I showed up, so I don't remember if the city just blesses us to have a booth or where the tent came from.
I brought that.
Thank
Um,
you.
Does it come through Park and Rec? I don't know.
It's so I was on the planning committee for several years, the fair planning. So we requested a booth placement from yeah, Parks and Rec does it in coordination with this committee. And so I think we asked for a spot at the end, Kim, so that we could have the bikes have a big space. And that really worked out well, like for having a game or doing some interactive thing. So yeah, that would be a good idea. And then, yeah, we had to provide our own material as far as the tent and what have you.
And the stuff.
So I don't have that canopy anymore. It was the Ultimate Frisbee team's canopy. Actually, I just borrowed it for the weekend.
It was pretty epic. I mean, I was really blown away by how much stuff was there. You went in and you went all out. It was a great event. And then we also did the parade. So if anyone's interested, I mean, you don't have to dress up like bees. We did dress up like bees, and Mary made some really awesome things out of swim goggles and antennas, and we had black clothes on and yellow tape for stripes because we're a bee city. But if there's any interest, we can be in the parade too.
It's always fun.
I know that's what Darren's dying to do.
We still have the wings here somewhere.
Oh, good. Thanks. I can see Jerry. I mean, you do pretty good in costume, Jerry. So, yeah. Okay. So if everybody's on board, let's just Greg, when you get the notes of the ideas we threw out, we'll send that to everybody to review the minutes later, and
Okay.
then anything they want to add, because we'll have to get approval from Parks to be there. Once we commit, then we got to magically find tables and tents and things and people to be there. So sounds like that's a yes, let's do this. Yes.
I noticed in the paper today, the West Linn Tidings, that Lake Oswego's advisory board. Did anybody else see that? They're advertising. I just glanced at it and got a chance to read it. They're doing a special fair day soon that was being advertised or mentioned in the paper, in the tidings. And the list sounded like what we do for the fair, all the things that they're going to do. So I can dig that out of my, I think it got recycled before I got to read it because I don't live here alone. And I will dig it out, and I can send a short email about what they are doing and when, if anybody wants to go see that, because it looked like they had a long list of things that they're doing.
If it's duplicatable, that makes everything so much easier.
That's kind of where I was going with that.
Heck yeah.
All right, so that's my to-do, is to dig it out of the recycling.
Okay.
Which just got emptied.
Okay. So we have to go down the street and get a newspaper. All
Nope.
right. Anything else on the Old Time Fair and parade? Okay, stay tuned. Education series. We have May, June, and July on the calendar. I'm going to pull that up really quick on the city calendar. So May is the electric future. June is the reduce reuse with Alex, and then July and the water conservation. We are to be determined on the presenter. Is that Mike or,
To do the October session for
thank you. Okay,
fall vegetable and fruit preservation.
okay. Who was checking with the water presenter?
Was that in the minutes? I can't remember.
I'm sure it was.
Remember it, yeah.
Seeing the minutes.
I was pulling them up, but it had a lot of stuff in the minutes.
Yeah.
And that may have been Terry. I was trying to figure out who was there so that we at least had that, but that's not till July. So I'll make a note on there that we need to get the water presenter for July. And then didn't we have topics all the way through October? Is that right?
I think so.
We were
No.
gonna,
What
yeah,
is-
we're gonna take the summer off.
So August off.
Yeah,
I don't know about September.
and September, I think, as well. If I'm not mistaken.
That's how I remember it.
So we are good May, June, July, August and September off, October. You've got Mike. And then I don't remember if we had November. Looking at the notes here. And I'll check in with Terry, because that's still a ways out. But I think we're pretty solid on the education series. I talked to the library to see, like for the next one, if we wanted to do it in person, or do a hybrid. And the hybrid sounds like kind of a pain to do because they have to bring portable equipment in. And I wanted to get some feedback, what everybody thought about the what we're doing online. Because the nice thing is it can be shared back on our webpage. So how successful has this been? I mean, Greg, you just presented, there's the people there, and then how many views are we getting on videos after they're posted? And maybe that's a Jerry question.
I don't have an answer for that, and I don't know if I can check that. Dylan, last time I talked to Dylan about like clicks through our website, he didn't have that data available that I can follow up with him. So happy to do that.
All 4 for this year are up online right now.
Okay.
So they're posted.
So how does everybody feel in person versus being online for the rest of our education series?
I might get more attendance if it's online.
Yeah, I think so too, but I think it's more vibrant in person. So it's such a difficult decision.
And I think to some extent, we still need to wait to see what's going to happen with COVID.
Okay,
So
so
maybe-
stick with, yeah,
Really looking to see what happens, in the summer, and perhaps trying in the winter time when there's less activity outside, more people may be willing to come inside for something, and see like whether or not it would make sense in December, November, December, or January, February to do something in person. I still would like to try to pull together something like a series that would deal with climate change issues. And I think those would be best done in person just because of the possibility of small group discussion after watching a film or seeing some kind of presentation. So I would say, maybe in the winter, let's hold the possibility open of having at least a few in person.
so stick with the online through the summer and then actually through the series through October and then take a look at how winter looks.
Yeah.
I mean, we're still 6 months. I mean, we're still months out from October, so we can,
Right.
revisit when that switches.
People are less likely to go out in the winter more likely to stay home and sign in online when it's raining and cold
With snacks.
with snacks?
Seriously, it's all about snacks.
I guess where I was coming from, Debbie, was just that there are fewer things to do in the wintertime. And so people would be kind of in the summertime more likely to have, there would be competing kinds of activities.
Yeah.
You're muted, Debbie.
I think around the holidays, people are going to be really busy, and
Oh, yeah.
that may impact attendance both in November and December because it's a crazy time for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are on track then for education, sticking with online for now. And I'll check in with Terry on the water. So item number 8 is our 2022 goals update. And before you kick in, Darren, I think Milwaukee just passed a tree code. You were talking about Tigard, and City of Milwaukee just did. So I don't know who wants to start, Jerry or Darren.
This is Darren.
All right, thank you. So again, Darren Wise, planning manager for the city. And my colleague in Tiger that did the tree code while I was there, he's now a consultant, and he was the consultant on the Milwaukee tree code. So he's very, very good at what he does. So tonight I've been invited here to talk about, it says tree code on the agenda, but I was prepared to talk about the electric vehicle charging stations, but I can do
Yes.
both.
Yes,
And,
all of the above.
Both.
Okay, so the tree code should take about 30 seconds. Again, the tree code, it's going to be quite a project. It will be multiple years and quite a bit of money to update the tree code. The Planning Commission and the City Council held a joint work session early April. And that was briefly discussed, but it was not added to the planning docket. So planning will not be dedicating any resources to it until it gets put on the planning docket. So it's sort of just sitting in limbo right now.
I'm sorry, Darren, can you explain why it costs so much money?
So the proposal that's been thrown about is to restrict 20% of the trees on a site to not be able to be removed, which that kicks in what's known through the Oregon State Land Use Program, what's known as a Goal 5 analysis. So that would require the city to inventory all the trees and then do what's called an ESEE analysis. And I always get this wrong, but it's environmental, social, economic, and equitable analysis. So you have to look at each of those groves and perform this analysis. So the inventory and the analysis would require consultant help and time. And then based on that analysis, then the city makes a proposal on what to protect. It comes out in what they call an ALP analysis: allow, limit, and protect. So you can protect some areas, limit in areas, and other areas allow the removal of the trees. So again, it's a long process, and then it has to go through, of course, updating the city's code, and then probably looking at the municipal code. There's tree removal sections in there, so it's a heavy lift.
And would the inventory include all lots in the city or only undeveloped lots?
That would be up to the city council to decide what they wanted to do. So if you were just looking at the development of larger undeveloped lots, then you could concentrate on those. But if you're looking at more comprehensive, like when any tree can be removed, then it would take a lot longer. But yeah, you could definitely focus it on developable areas that have not, that aren't currently.
Because my impression is that there are not that many developable areas in the city that remain.
That's correct. There's 200 acres, I think, is what our buildable lands inventory had.
Yeah.
So, yeah, about 200 acres.
So it seems like that kind of inventory wouldn't be that difficult to accomplish. Do you know like whether these tree codes in Tigard and in Milwaukee include all lots in the city or just the developable lots?
Yeah, so when we the tree code applied to all lots in the city of Tigard. The Goal 5 analysis was based on the entire city also. So it was comprehensive.
Okay.
I'm not sure about Milwaukee. So anyhow, yeah, so again, council would need to put it on the docket and then provide funding for the process. So moving to the electric vehicle charging stations. So the SAB, I've got it pulled up here. So it was the SAB proposal to City Council. It included charging stations, government buildings, which I believe we talked about the last time. That's outside of the Community Development Code. That's more of a budget issue of whether or not the council would want to budget funds to do that, or possibly some grant writing and get some funds to do that. Commercial and multifamily residential. Those are CDC related, and it's very timely that the SAB has brought this up. The state, the Department of Land Conservation and Development, which is the state's planning arm, basically. They are engaged in what they're calling the Climate Friendly and Equitable Communities Project. It's been going on for a little over a year, and they are at the final rulemaking stage. And the Land Conservation and Development Commission will be adopting the rules by the end of May. And in these rules, these climate friendly and equitable community rules, there's a range of topics, ranges from how transportation planning is done. And let me step back. So all of this is based on reducing greenhouse gas emissions in the state. So there's a range of rules, again, how transportation planning is done, parking requirements, lowering parking requirements, so trying to get people out of their cars. Again, land use and housing, how housing is related, location of housing is related to transit, bicycle infrastructure, pedestrian infrastructure. And then there's also a language in here about electric vehicle charging stations. So the specific references, and I can send this to you if you have interest, but the specific reference is the Oregon Administrative Rules 660 Division 12, Section 410 is the EV charging section that they're looking to adopt. And I will pull it up here so you can see it. If I can get it on screen here. All right, can you all see that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so as you can see, this rule will require, so point one, it points to revised statutes, and these revised statutes direct the Director of Department of Consumer and Business Services to adopt EV charging requirements into the state building code for commercial, multifamily, residential, and mixed use. These are new projects, so new multifamily residential projects, new commercial projects, and new mixed use projects that would require 20% of the parking spaces to be electrified, basically. So they would have to run the lines to the parking lot for the charging stations to be able to install easily. The second point is so for new multifamily residential with 5 or more, new mixed buildings that have commercial and residential of 5 or more, we as a city will be required to adopt this code in A and B there. So a level 2 or above electric charging station serving 20% of all parking spaces. And then the part B there is that city will have a choice of the 3 here, either an additional 30% of level 1 charging spaces, an additional 15% of level 2 or 5% of direct current fast charging stations. So this has to be adopted into the city's community development code. And then again, 3 is that pointing back to that back to 1 where the building code is going to be updated. So again, that would require 20% of buildings parking spaces to be electrified. So these are mandates coming out of the state. So the city doesn't have a choice in this. We could go above this, but this is the minimum we're going to have to meet. The deadline to adopt these standards will be a little less than a year from now, so March 31st, 2023. There's a number of additional parking measures we have to adopt also, but as the SAB is focused on the electrification, so these are the code provisions that we will adopt by March 31st of next year. So I believe that will meet the goals of the SAB's proposal to council. At least get most of the way there, and then if the SAB would want to engage in a conversation about going further, that's always something that would be welcome. And again, I can send all of this information to you in an email, so you don't have to dig it up yourself. But this is the proposal that's going before the commission for adoption.
Well, this is great news. I really love seeing this. You said that it needs to be adopted by 2023.
Yes, March 31st, 2023.
And put into effect by when?
I'm not sure about that, but typically when you adopt something, it goes into effect 30 days later. So
I know, but you can't immediately put 20% of all the parking places electric.
So it would be for new construction.
Okay.
Yeah, so they would have to run the conduit and the electric lines out to the parking lot, and then I don't believe they're required to install the equipment. They just have to install the infrastructure to then install the equipment at a later date.
Can I say how aggravating it is that all of the work that was done in Old West Linn and that got ignored? I'm done.
That was a budgetary item. It was addressed, it was brought up in the design, there wasn't budget, and that's why the city has 1 charging station. So this, I mean, it can be added down there. It was just a budgetary item of not the city, it was outside of the scope. And yeah, we need them, but we don't have the purse strings. So
Tillamook has 2 level 2 charging stations for travelers.
we have a lot of opportunity to do better. Question, Darren, on this adoption, is there an opportunity to have this adopted prior to that date when when our recommendations for House Bill, what the heck is it with the working group? Is it 2001 with the infill and the middle housing? Because it'd be a shame to have a gap between our adoption of that and March if there's any middle housing going in.
So to answer that question, no. But yeah, so this would not apply to middle housing. This is only going to apply to new commercial, new multifamily residential, and new mixed use developments. Mixed use being commercial and multifamily residential together.
But we could adopt it before March of next year?
We have to, yeah.
Good, okay.
Yeah. Of course, with the caveat, unless that changes with the final adoption of the rules. But the way it's written now is that we would be required to, yes, adopt this by March 31st of 2023. So any new construction after that they would install the infrastructure to install the charging stations in the parking lots.
I really appreciate you explaining this. It's encouraging.
Yeah, the state of Oregon has done a lot of legislation over the last 3 years surrounding housing and climate change, and now they're getting into the equitable. Can't ever say the word. equitable communities discussion now. So it's a lot of action out of the legislature.
Well, while we're on this topic, Jerry, have you heard anything more from PGE? Because at our, was it our last meeting or the meeting before? I think it was the meeting before when they were here. There's an opportunity to put charging in public right away.
I haven't heard anything additional from them.
Well, I think Shauna changed jobs. So
Really?
yeah,
She was just emailing us 2 weeks ago.
I think.
There's other folks at PGE that I can talk to.
Okay, so I mean, because if that's available, that's something we could take action on right now. And you know, and really to have us in alignment with the infrastructure money that's coming out. This is infrastructure. This is infrastructure for charging. And since we have goals of electrifying, let's participate in that. Okay, of all the things we had submitted, Darren, so that covers tree code, that covered the charging. Remind me of everything in our proposal to council. Was there anything else in there that was part of the CDC, the Community Development Code, or was that it, the trees and the electrification?
Yeah, it's primarily, the tree code and then the electric vehicle charging stations, which again, we'll be putting that language into the code. We did have a conversation about the resilient landscaping. Probably, I mean, again, it's my opinion. You can have a separate opinion, but probably not an effective way to go about it by putting it in the community development code because there's no enforcement action on it. Again, I recommended it's more of a public information campaign, partnering with the Backyard Habitat Program and other nonprofits and government agencies that actually do this kind of work on a regular basis, and go about it that route. Maybe some demonstration gardens in some of our parks to show what resilient landscaping looks like. But yeah, it's it is something that we could adopt into the code for new buildings to plant this type of stuff, but there's really no way to follow up and enforce it. So
Great, thank you. Any other questions for Darren on the tree code and the updates? Applause, great news. Would love to see the information that you had just shared about that code coming out. That's fantastic. That makes it easier for you too, doesn't it?
absolutely. Well, I mean, I wouldn't say it makes it easier. I still have to go through the process, but I don't have to invent the wheel again.
You don't have to invent it.
Yes.
Look at what trailblazers we are, huh?
Yep. Yeah. So I will send the SAB an email with the links to all of these different documents that I've been talking about.
Fantastic. Okay, Jerry, staff liaison update.
I don't have much more to update than the email that I wrote, which hopefully you all have seen. Debbie asked some questions that in an email that I'm just going to answer for the group. Will a management analyst that we could potentially hire do feasibility studies? Yes. And yes, we would like for that person or any person working for the city to take a data-driven approach. Will Northwest Natural be able to break down usage so sources can be strategic? My assumption is yes, but they haven't confirmed that. And finally, the Westland Refuse contract, when it's up for renewal, it looks like it's up for renewal again in 2025. We do an 8-year auto-renewing term. We would have to give 30 days notice before July 1st if we were to break that deal. So those are some updates. The update that you'll be seeing on Facebook or maybe the Tidings or wherever we can get press is that Alex Mim came over to the Adult Community Center today with 5 of the plaques that we earned for meeting the Clackamas County Leaders in Sustainability program. You all know this, and I must have forgot, but like there's cool decals that we'll put on the front of, well, not the front, the entrance to every one of our buildings. The plaques are cool too. And then now that we've hired a business support specialist, my hope is that when she starts doing outreach work with the business community, she can talk this up with all of our businesses in town. And I, want to reach out to Main Street and the chamber as well, just so that we can publicize the heck out of this and as the SAB has talked about, lead by example. So I think that'd be helpful. One thing I think I might have mentioned this to Kim on the phone, but didn't mention for the whole group. Alex Mim, who used to be on the SAB, a West Linn resident, mentioned to me that the city is the only city in the program to have all of its buildings in the program. Other cities might have just one or two, but we have every building that we have people in. I want to be clear about that. Some buildings that we don't have people in, we haven't met it, but and we didn't try. But so it's a pretty cool accomplishment, and kudos to
Awesome.
SAB for the idea that it was really a lot of work to finalize all those applications. Alex would come through and check to make sure that we're doing everything that we're saying we're doing. So it took a few visits, and I don't know, it was fun to go through, a good learning process for me. So those are my staff updates.
Is there a photo op with the plaques?
Oh
and the
yeah, they're all gonna be
signature
on our socials and stuff.
And the Sustainability Advisory Board, come on, you gotta have your people in here touching the plaques.
Yeah. So we'll throw it up on our socials and stuff.
Well, or bring it, and you need to bring them down to the fair too.
Okay.
The parade of plaques, and
They're pretty cool looking.
that's significant. I mean, getting to gold, when we had started this, I remember the police station was like a box of recycled paper away from being silver, and it had just sat there. Like several buildings were close, and then whatever happened with people changing, it just sort of got forgotten. And way to pick it up and cross the finish line, because it's great to do the work, but it's super victorious to cross the finish line, and you got gold.
Those are my updates.
It's kind of huge. In fact, don't you have a crown in your office? I thought you had some gold crown in there.
I don't have anything in here.
That's fantastic. It's super exciting. And like you said, it's leading by example, and this is also a really good opportunity for businesses, local businesses, to become certified, because it's a great way to get credit for doing things you're already doing and be recognized for it and listed on the county website. Okay. Action item review for SAB members. I think we did it as we went. And
So what I have down is that Victoria is going to look up the article about the Lake Oswego SAB and the things that they're doing at their fair. Kim, you're going to be checking with Terry about the fall series, the Edge series. So those are the two things that stick out in my mind. So I just look back through. Mary?
I grabbed the newspaper and see this item about this sustainability fair, and it's Sunday from 11 to 2 at Lake Ridge Middle School.
Thank you, Mary.
Thanks, Mary.
I knew it was soon.
Yeah, it's because of Earth Day, I guess, in honor of Earth Day, they say here. And there's more information, but I won't read it all to you.
Oh, it's short. It's short. It's only a paragraph.
I mean, it's like 2 paragraphs. I don't know. But yeah, so it's PGE will be there. Oh, they are doing an electric tool trade. So
Yeah.
you have to register ahead of time. It doesn't really say where, but it's a PGE program. So I bet they have some connection. Oh, visit PG portlandgeneral.com, April Tool Exchange. You could probably look that up. And then you could bring in a gas or non-electric tool, and they will give you a discounted price. They will take your old tool and give you a discounted price on an electric tool, I guess. And I'm sure there'll be other good stuff. So, yeah.
Thank you. Great. Okay. Anything else that anyone like to add for the good of the order? Well, if you're okay with finishing 10 minutes early, this meeting is adjourned. Oh, Victoria, we're not adjourned yet.
Do you still want me to send a quick email with the details that Mary was just going over? Yes. Okay, I'll do that tonight.
Jerry, you had something. Your hair?
Stretching.
Okay. Thank you all so much for your engagement and participation and